Guys, as hard as it might be to believe, I have been using the Pixel Fold now for a little over a month. Time absolutely has flown by with this device. In this video, I'm going to kind of update you guys. Has anything changed? How do I feel about this device? How have I been using it now that it's been in my hands, in my pocket as my daily driver for a full month? So let's start off with the hardware. After a month, not a whole lot has changed here. I continue to think that this device feels extremely premium, feels extremely well built. It is a fingerprint magnet. You can see here on the hinge, if you are bothered by fingerprints, you're either going to need to be doing this a lot or maybe put a case on it or something like that. You can see here my D brand leather skin is beginning to develop a very nice patina. But yeah, like I said, the hardware is absolutely rock solid. This thing feels fantastic and nothing has changed on that front. The hinge is still just as stiff as it was before. The magnet's just as strong. Nothing really has changed. This is an extremely well-built and premium feeling device. So sort of sticking with hardware, something I've been using a ton over the last month, much more than I expected, is tint mode. With the Z Fold, because of how skinny and narrow that screen is, tint mode wasn't something that I really wanted to do because the video that you were watching was just super duper tiny. Or, I mean, if you wanted to use it in laptop mode, it really wasn't a good experience either. But I find tint mode is a really, really useful thing. Let's jump into YouTube here and we'll just start up a video and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So you go full screen and you've got this really nice video watching experience. Of course, you could set it this way, open it up a little bit further and go into laptop mode, but you're either going to be slightly wobbly because of your camera bump or you're going to set it screen down, which seems like an incredibly bad idea. So for me, tint mode has been absolutely clutch. I've used it a ton, and like I said, I've used it way more than I ever did on the Z Fold. Now, speaking of this cover display, I do find that I'm using it more than I used the cover display on the Z Fold 4. And a lot of people have had sort of a similar take on this. They've said, if you're using the cover display a ton, why even bother having a foldable? Why not just get a normal phone and use that? And I think that, well, I understand where they're coming from. I think that they're kind of missing the point. I'm going to explain it here as best I can. With the Z Fold 4, what you have is a great tablet experience, but then when it comes to the cover display, you have something that I think is not necessarily a great experience. You have something that is a cover display. And what I mean by that is something similar in concept to what we have with something like the Z Flip. It's not meant to be seen as a normal phone. It's meant to be seen as a cover display. You're not meant to do everything on this screen. You're meant to do short, quick tasks, quickly sending a text message, checking an email, so forth and so on. But then anytime you need to actually do anything, this is the primary screen you're probably going to be using. And that's fine. Maybe that's how you like it. That's what you want to do. Great. I'm happy for you. With the Pixel Fold, it is a very different experience. You have, instead of a cover display, yes, I know this is still a cover display, just kind of roll with my verbiage because it helps explain my thinking. You have a compact phone. You have a full-fledged compact phone. Think something like the Pixel 5, right? Like it's something in that realm. You have a really solid compact phone. And honestly, I could see myself using this phone. But then you also have a great tablet. The Pixel Fold for me is two devices in one. It's a great compact phone and it's a great tablet. This is a great tablet that has a cover display. That is the distinction that I'm trying to make. And I know that some of you will probably be upset with the words that I'm using, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Because I know this section is likely to rile some people up, let me kind of give you a little bit more information here. When I used my Z Fold, it was probably something like 70-30, maybe 60-40 towards using the tablet display. I did not use the cover display very much at all. I almost always opened it up and used the inner display, okay? Because that cover display, like I said, for me, is just not good at a whole lot of things. It's fine for very specific tasks, and again, that's why I call it a cover display. With the Pixel Fold, it's pretty close to 50-50. It's a really, really even split. In fact, I may even use the cover display. Some days I do use the cover display more. It is very task specific. When I'm doing phone stuff, I use the phone. When I'm doing tablet stuff, I use the tablet. And again, To me, the Pixel Fold is two devices. The Z Fold is closer to being one device. And I understand some people are going to love the cover display on the Z Fold. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm just saying from my experience, that's how it felt using both devices. Hopefully we're on the same page. In normal day-to-day use, performance has also been extremely smooth. I really can't think of a single instance where I have tried to do something. I've tried to open an app or do anything, edit a video in CapCut, and things just were slow, where I felt like, man, this thing is just not as fast as some of the other devices that I have. These tasks are absolutely flying by, and even with split screen multitasking, which I do a ton, which I'm just picking two super duper random applications, everything just remains so extremely fast. And if I swap one out for another application, we'll do another weather app here, it's fine. Everything just flies by. People saying that the Tensor chip is, it's slow. You can't do as much with it because it's going to overheat and it's not going to run things well. It's just not true, guys. This device absolutely flies. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't get warm, because it absolutely does. Now, personally, I've not seen anything really bad happen from this. I have felt it get warm, but I've never had it, shut down or give me camera errors or anything like that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It just hasn't happened to me. My only experience is that while I'm using it, maybe I'm playing something like Pocket City 2, which I've played a little bit of. Yeah, this side gets a little bit toasty. But for me, I guess I'm kind of like, well, okay, it's warm, but like, what is the negative effect from that other than feeling warmth? And for me, there really hasn't been a negative effect. Again, if you're outside and we're in this heat dome situation, maybe that could become a problem for you. Maybe things do get too hot, but for me, this just hasn't happened. The only thing I can really say heat-wise that has been a problem for me is that when you're outside in direct sunlight and you're using either the tablet screen or the cover display, it hits that peak brightness that does look very good, but it very quickly reaches a temperature that it can't sustain that peak brightness and it drops down. Now, typically for me, I'm pulling the phone out of my pocket. If I'm outside, I'm probably just using the cover display and I'm doing something pretty brief. And by the time I'm done, we're still in that peak brightness area. But if you want to have extended use outside in very bright sunlight, you may experience a dimmer screen because of that heat issue. I'm assuming it's because of that heat issue. That's really the worst thing I've experienced in regard to the heat of the Tensor. Like I said, performance has been rock solid. I've also seen pretty much no bugs at all, and I'm not really getting comments about bugs either. And a lot of people expected first gen Pixel, it's going to be buggy, unstable, so forth and so on. But it really hasn't been. Even people running the Android 14 beta have reported to me a very stable experience. In fact, I would say objectively for me, I'm seeing fewer bugs here than I was on my Z Fold 4. When I picked up my Fold 4 just a minute ago to show you in this video, my swipe up to go home gesture just wasn't working. I had to hit the back gesture several times to get to the home screen to get that working again, and that happens quite a bit on my Fold now. The Pixel Fold, it's been pretty solid, guys. What about the battery life? So I'll show you kind of where I'm at right now as of this morning. I have 2 hours and 5 minutes of screen time, and I've got a 77% on my battery. So battery for me has been pretty good. Now, I have disabled 5G just because I don't need the extra speed and it does save a little bit of battery. But other than that, I'm using, a cinematic wallpaper, which you can maybe see is moving. If you look down there, you can see that it's kind of moving in a parallax manner. I'm not really doing anything else to save battery on this thing besides what I normally do. And battery has really been not a problem at all for me. In fact, now that it's settled down, I can pretty confidently say I'm getting better battery life than I was when I was using my Z Fold 4 only a month ago. It's not by a huge margin, but it's definitely slightly better. Now, to be fair, 5G was enabled on the Fold 4, so if I enabled it back here, I would bet that it's probably going to be nearly identical battery performance. All that said, charging is much slower than it should be on this device, and that's something that maybe they can address with a patch or something, but it is definitely an annoying problem with this device. Speaking of annoying things, this is probably the most annoying thing for me when we're using applications that don't span across the screen. Applications that do not have any kind of tablet layout. This is definitely something that I wish was better. I wish we had the option to stretch them. I get what Google's doing. They're trying to get these companies to make tablet versions of their applications. But again, having the ability to span it like we do on the Z Fold 4 would be a really, really nice option to have. And there are definitely some other applications like Discord that have some real problems with tablet screens. Like, I don't think it's meant to do this. Like, every time I launch it, it seems like things are acting slightly differently each time. It just doesn't seem to work well on these tablet screens. So there are some app issues like that. Granted, Discord also acts weird on my Z Fold. It's kind of up to the app developers to fix these sorts of things, but those things are a little bit annoying. Anytime I'm going to use like my Wise app, I tend to just close it and open it on the cover display because I'm not really getting any benefit from using it here, unless, of course, I want to split screen the Wise app with something else, and then there is a benefit. In a recent video, I talked about the fact that Google is making changes to the Play Store to try and encourage developers to make apps that are compatible with tablets by boosting those apps to the top of the search results and also putting some text on the screen to tell people when apps might not work well on their devices. So hopefully Google has some success with that and we can kind of solve this problem. But again, it would be nice to have the ability to stretch those apps out should we want to do that. In regard to the camera, my opinions have changed a little bit. I still think it is a very, very solid camera, but I've noticed a couple of weaknesses with the camera that I can show you in some images here. When we are in well-lit areas, I think that the camera is absolutely fantastic. It does a great job of capturing detail and being relatively realistic. I will say, though, that sometimes photos do come out looking a little bit muted in terms of their color profile. And I'm therefore finding it necessary to go in and occasionally pump up the saturation on images. Maybe this is partially because I got really used to using the Z Fold 4 with its punched up color tones and I'm just not used to natural colors. I'm not sure, but sometimes it does feel like it's a little bit muted. Either way, this is a camera that I trust quite a bit. 99% of the time when I press that shutter button, I can pretty well trust that the shot I'm going to get is going to be solid, it's going to be usable. However, in some circumstances, like lower light, things do occasionally look a little over sharpened for me. If we zoom in here, it does look to me slightly over sharpened. I would like to actually go in and maybe denoise just a little bit because of that over sharpened look. It does seem to do this a little bit more when you're using something like a 2x digital zoom. I assume it's doing this to try and kind of keep more detail in the shot, but I think sometimes it overshoots and looks just a little bit overly sharpened. I'll also say that in lower light, the shutter could stand to be a little bit quicker. You can see here that she moved just a little bit, and we wound up with a little bit of blur. In some of my testing, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4 actually performed a little bit better in slightly lower light with moving targets. Like I said, overall, I still really do dig the camera result. In particular, shots like this, with that 5x zoom, being able to get in on these butterfly, really, really cool to be able to get a shot like this without spooking them, without having to get right up on them. Even macro stuff, just using autofocus is really good. I love this camera, but that is not to say that it is a perfect camera. Colors can be muted, it's a little over sharpened sometimes, and the shutter speed could definitely stand to be sped up. Keep in mind though, this stuff can all be addressed in future patches. So there you go, guys. That is my experience with the Pixel Fold after 1 month. I'll drop an affiliate link to the Fold down below. So if you want to purchase it and help support the channel, you are able to do that. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.